The true story of Mozart, the boy who heard music. Before he could speak, when people talk about musical geniuses, they throw around names lightly. But in all of history, few, if any, shine brighter than Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Born in Salzburg, Austria, in 1756, Mozart's story didn't start with fame. It started with something far more unusual. At age 3, he could identify pitch. By 4, he was playing the harpsichord. And by 5, he was composing music. His father, Leopold, a respected violinist and music theorist, immediately recognized that his son was extraordinary. More than a stage dad, Leopold was a passionate educator who saw Wolfgang's abilities as a divine gift. He dedicated his life to showcasing that gift to the world, and so began one of the most intense and relentless childhood careers in history. From Salzburg to Vienna, Paris to London, and even as far as Prague, young Mozart performed for nobility across Europe. At age 6, he stunned audiences by improvising entire sonatas. By 7, he was publishing compositions. Royal courts buzzed with gossip about the boy who played blindfolded and composed minuets in minutes. In one of the most legendary feats of musical memory, Mozart heard the Vatican's secret choral piece Miserere just once and transcribed it from memory. A piece the church had forbidden to be written down. This act stunned Rome and earned Mozart respect from even the most traditional institutions. But this rise came with cost. Wolfgang was a boy constantly in motion, performing to eat, composing to survive. He was often sick, physically exhausted, and emotionally strained. He craved normalcy. But his life was anything but. Despite the hardships, Mozart's output was astonishing. As a teen, he composed operas, concertos, symphonies, and chamber works that redefined musical form and harmony. He was both experimental and intuitive, bold and brilliant. By the time he turned 20, he was seeking independence from his father's control. He moved to Vienna, the musical capital of Europe, to forge his own path. Vienna was buzzing with Enlightenment ideals and revolution. Mozart found inspiration in the city's blend of old tradition and new philosophy. He connected with Freemasons, intellectuals, and artists. He married Constanze Weber, the sister of a former love interest. Their relationship was full of affection, drama, and occasional financial turmoil. Though often in debt, Mozart refused to compromise on his art. He turned down royal commissions that would restrict his creativity, choosing instead to write works that were experimental, human, and emotionally raw. Ara's operas broke new ground. Rather than glorifying kings and gods, they highlighted flawed, ordinary people, servants outsmarting masters, lovers confronting betrayal, and anti-heroes meeting justice. In The Marriage of Figaro, he poked fun at the aristocracy, a risky move in a time when the French Revolution loomed. In Don Giovanni, he portrayed a ruthless seducer dragged to hell by his own sins. And in The Magic Flute, he fused mystical themes with Enlightenment values. A fairy tale for the age of reason. Mozart's innovations went beyond theater. His piano concertos created intimate dialogues between soloist and orchestra. His symphonies added emotional depth to a form once seen as mere background music. His string quartets, inspired by Haydn, brought new balance and sophistication to chamber music. He could write sorrow like a dagger, joy like a sunrise, and love like a dance. But success didn't bring peace. Mozart constantly battled poverty. Though admired, he was rarely paid what he deserved. Court composers, less talented but better connected, often overshadowed him. He gave lessons to the wealthy, sometimes humbling himself before people far less gifted. He also struggled with illness. From childhood, Mozart faced repeated bouts of fever, tonsillitis, and infections. These episodes often left him bedridden, yet even in pain, he continued to compose. He once wrote, "When I am at my best, I am not of this world." In his final years, he worked feverishly, knowing time was slipping away. His correspondence became increasingly philosophical, pondering fate, death, and legacy. He surrounded himself with fellow Freemasons and thinkers, exploring themes of life and the afterlife. He experimented with new harmonic structures in his late symphonies, especially Nos. 39 to 41, he merged structure and soul in ways never heard before. His clarinet concerto, written for a friend, was the first major work for that instrument, and remains one of its most beloved. Mozart's music began to shift, from youthful elegance to deep emotional maturity. In the final year of his life, things began to change. He received multiple commissions. Audiences began to catch up to his genius. He wrote the Magic Flute, La Clemenza di Tito, and began the Requiem, all within months. But fate had other plans. Mozart fell gravely ill. Still, he worked obsessively on the Requiem, convinced he was writing his own death mass. Legend holds that he dictated parts of it from his deathbed to his student Franz Xaver Sesmer. On December 5, 1791, at just 35 years old, Mozart died. He was buried in a common grave, as was custom for the middle class in Vienna. There were no grand ceremonies, no public mourning, just rain, obscurity, and the end of a genius too soon. But his music never stopped. His influence exploded in the decades after his death. Beethoven called him the greatest. Chopin idolized him. Tchaikovsky, Mahler, and Strauss studied his every note. His widow, Constanza, fought tirelessly to preserve his legacy, organized concerts, published his work, and shared his letters. Thanks to her efforts, Mozart didn't vanish into obscurity. He became immortal. Today, Mozart's music is everywhere. From concert halls to films, from lullabies to video game soundtracks, scientists have studied its effects on the brain. Children still learn with his melodies, and adults weep at his operas. He left behind over 600 works across virtually every musical form of his time, and elevated all of them. His genius wasn't just in writing beautiful music. It was in making people feel joy, longing, laughter, regret, and maybe that's why even centuries later, we still play Mozart. Because in a world full of noise, his music still speaks with clarity, honesty, and light. Like and subscribe for more true music stories that changed history. And join us live every night at 6 p.m. EST for full album reactions and the legends behind the sound.